Hey guys, watch me turn you from a basic designer to a professional. Welcome to Sew with Anita, where I share tips that no one talks about that would elevate your sewing skills from a basic to professional. So if you're just joining us for the first time, you're welcome, and hit on the like and subscribe button so we can get notified whenever I drop videos like this. In this video, I'll be teaching us how to achieve this two-piece smoky top with a wide leg palazzo trouser. So I'll be taking us through the cutting and the sewing process, and I'll be dropping tips that you must not miss out on so you can get a perfect finishing. Without further ado, let's dive into the video. So for the purpose of this, I actually made use of one whole Ankara bag for this, and so I'm going to go ahead to draft out my pattern for my palazzo piece first. On the pattern paper, I'm going to first get my starting line, which I'll just be using the beginning of this brown paper. So I'm then going to get my waist to hip measurement, which is a standard measurement. So for your hip, if you're on the bigger size from 40 and above, you're going to be making use of 9 inches. But if you're on the smaller size from 30 to 38, you can make use of 8 inches. So I'm going to be making use of 9 inches because of my customer's measurement, and I'm going to go ahead to mark it out like that. Then I'm going to draw a straight line, after which I'll just label it out so you don't get confused. The next thing I'm going to do is to get my crunch measurement, which is your hip measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inches for 8. So I'm just going to go ahead to mark out a line like that, and I'm going to label it crunch. So then from that point, I'm going to get my crunch vertical measurement, which is my hip measurement divided by 4. I'm going to mark it out, and then from that point, I'm going to come out by about 4 inches for ease. So just look at what I'm doing and you're going to understand it. Then whatever I have at that hip line, I'm going to take it at the crunch line and at my waist line like that, and I'm going to connect the points. So I'm just going to extend the line like that. So just look at what I'm doing and you're going to get it right. Just extend the line at the hip and at the crunch line so I can get my crunch extension. So in order to get this crunch extension, I'm going to get my hip measurement divided by 4. Then I'm going to divide my results by 4 again. So if my hip measurement divided by 4 is 11 inches, I'm going to divide that 11 inches by 4 again. So what I got was about 2.75, which I will just approximate and make it about 3 inches. So I'm going to take it at my crunch line like that, and then I'm going to make my crunch curve. So I'm going to come up by 1 inch like that, just as a guide to make my curve, and I'm going to get my curved rule, and I'm going to connect the points. Next up, I'm going to get my waist measurement. So because I'm going to be adding an elastic to this, I don't want this to be too small if I take my actual waist measurement. So I'm just going to get it from this other point like this. I'm just going to come in by about 2 inches like that, and I'm going to mark it and connect the point. This is because I want it to be wide enough, because I'm going to add an elastic to it and it's going to like stretch. So I'm just going to connect the points with my curved rule like that. Next up, I'm going to come down by half of an inch so that I can connect the point so that the waist can actually lap very well. So this is what I'm doing. From that point, I'm going to connect it like that, and I'm going to use my ruler to connect from that point where I started my waist measurements down to where I came down by half of an inch. Next, I'll be getting my full length for the trouser. So I've gone ahead to extend the pattern paper because it was not long enough for what I wanted to achieve. So I'm just going to minus my half up from my full length, and whatever I have there, I'm just going to take it exactly. I'm not going to be adding any sewing allowance because I'm going to be adding like 3 inches band. So that 3 inches band, I didn't minus it. So if I minused it, I would have added my sewing allowance, but since I didn't minus it from this, that 3 inches is going to be used as my sewing allowance. So the summary is that we're just going to take exactly what we have there. Then I'm going to get what I have from that crunch line down to the crunch extension, and I'm going to divide what I have there by 2 like that, and then I'm going to mark it out just to get the midpoint. So after doing that, what I have at that side, I'm also going to take it at the other side. I'm going to take the same measurements down because I want to get a straight midpoint line. So just look at what I'm doing and you're going to get it right. So after doing that, I'm going to measure out the other half of the midpoint, and I'm going to take it down so that I can get a straight line of the full trouser like that. Then after doing that and marking out the line, I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out so we can do our slash and spread method in order for us to get this wide leg palazzo trouser. So just look at what I'm doing. Take take note of the way I'm cutting it out and you understand. So I'm not going to cut out all of the slash and spread side, so I'm just going to cut it down, but I'm not going to cut totally. So just look at it like that. Then I'm going to get my Ankara fabric and I'm going to place it on a fold and ensure that it is wide enough to accommodate our slash and spread and the whole trouser. So I took the wideness of the trouser plus about 6 inches or 8 inches. It all depends on you. I've gone ahead to place the pattern paper on the material like that. So just look at what I'm doing, and I'm going to open it up, slash it and spread it. I'm going to spread it by about 6 inches like that. Next up, I'm going to pin it down firmly so that I can cut it out. So ensure that while pinning it down, the paper doesn't move. So after you pin it a little, you measure it again to ensure that you still have 6 inches there. Then I'm going to just go ahead to cut it out like that. Next up, after cutting it out, I'm going to get this piece and place it on another folded material. This time around, make sure that at the top side you have about 2 inches, 2.5 inches. So because my customer is on the plus size, I'm using about 2.5 inches like that. I came up by 2.5 inches up there, and then I connected it down to the waist side. So if yours is not on the plus side, you can make use of 1.5 inches or just 2 inches. Then for the crunch extension, I'm going to take about 3 inches extra like that and connect the point there. Then I'm going to take 2 inches like that. I'm going to come out by 2.5 inches at that crunch side and connect it down. I'm going to also do the same thing to the lower part too. So just look at what I'm doing carefully. You can go ahead to continue your extension down to the lower leg, but because my material is not really enough, I'm just going to get it to where it stops like that, and I'm going to cut it out. Then I'll separate the front piece from the back piece like that, and I'm going to join the crunch for the back piece with about 1 inch. You can make use of ½ inch if you want. Then for the front piece, I'm going to be adding a pocket to it. So I've gone ahead to fold my pocket piece, the two of them. So what I have here on the fold is 8 inches at this side on the fold, and I have about 11 to 12 inches at this side too. So I'm just going to cut out one piece, the shape of one piece. So look at the way I placed it on the waist side of my front palazzo trouser. So I'm going to just place it like that. Ensure that the ends are missing each other. Do you see what I'm doing carefully? I don't know if you can really see it, so I'm just going to use my chalk to trace it so that you can see it clearly. So this is what we have. Do you see? Then I'm going to open up one side and I'm going to cut out that side. So please don't make a mistake, I'm not cutting both sides, just one piece like that. So this is what I have after cutting it out. So for the other pocket piece, I'm just going to open up this fabric like this. I'm going to unpin it and open it up. But first of all, we're going to get that first one that we already cut out. Join it together like this, position it well. Then I'm going to turn it over carefully so that it can be right side facing the right side. So do you see what I have there? So I'm going to go ahead to pin it down. This is what it looks like. So I'm just going to turn it and sew with ½ inch. So do you see? This is what it's going to look like after we are done. So for the other piece, I'm just going to do exactly the same thing I did for that first piece. I'm going to place it like that, and remember that the pocket fabric is at the wrong side, so that by the time you cut it open, it's going to be at the right side. So after I've placed it, do you see? I'm going to then use my chalk to trace it out. Then I'm going to cut it out just one side. So just in case you didn't get the explanation of the first one, look at the way I'm going to turn it over carefully, right side facing each other, and I'm going to pin it down. Then I'm going to stitch it with about ½ inch. After doing that, I'm just going to join the crunch of the two front pieces together. So just the same thing I did for the back piece, I'm going to turn it over, right side facing each other, and stitch it with about 1 inch. You can make use of ½ inch if you want. So I've gone ahead to join the one for the back piece, and this is what I have. Look at the way it is looking. So our trouser piece is already coming together. And I already went ahead to join the one for the front piece. So this is what the pocket is looking like. I've already joined the crunch, so I'm just going to give you like a closer view of what I did. So after joining the piece, I went ahead to just top stitch like that. I don't know if you can see it. I top stitch at the pocket side, not at the trouser side. So the top stitching is so that it can lap very well even without ironing it. So after top stitching it, I went ahead to iron it out, and this is what it is looking like. So to complete the pocket, I'm going to turn it over to the back and I'm going to stitch that lower end. So to have a neat finishing, I'm just going to turn it over like this at the right side, do you see? And I'm going to stitch it down. After stitching it down, I'm going to turn it back over and you're going to see the result. So this is what it looks like. Look at how neat it is looking. So I'm going to position my pocket back again and I'm going to just arrange it out so that the edges can be meeting each other. So after that, I'm just going to stitch that point like that so that it doesn't move around while I continue the palazzo making. After doing that, I'm going to join the sides of the front and the back piece together. So I've gone ahead to position it together and I'm going to face it right sides facing each other and I'm going to stitch it down with about 1 inch too. But before I do that, I'm going to make little amendment to the waist side because I don't want it to be too wide after adding my pocket. So I'm just going to come in by about 3 inches from where I fixed it and I'm going to shape it down like that. After doing that, you can then join the sides. So after joining the sides, this is what I have. I'm just going to go ahead to fold the lower end of the trouser like that and I'm going to then join the crunch side together. So do you see what I'm doing? Then after doing that, I'm going to measure out my waist round. I'm going to measure out what I have there as the waist and I'm going to use it to cut out the band for this particular trouser. So for the band, I'll be making use of about 6 inches and I'll place it on a fold so that we can have 3 inches there. And I'm going to pass through, make 3 piping lines so that I can pass through elastic, rope and another elastic together. So I've gone ahead to iron it out. I folded the ends of both sides with about half of an inch, so just do the same thing so it can be easy for me to attach the band to the waist neatly. So I ensured that while cutting the band for the waist, I left about 1 inches for joining. So I'm just going to go ahead to use that inches allowance I left to join the sides like that. Then I'm going to place that side I joined at the side I joined the front crunch like that. So I just want the line to be the same. So this is what I'm doing and I'm going to just sew it down just one side. I've already gone ahead to place it wrong side facing the wrong side facing the right side, sorry. Then I'm going to sew it down so that my stitches will be showing at the front. So ensure that it's just one side of the band that you're sewing to the waist side like that, and it's going to be that the stitches is going to be showing at the front. So just take note of everything and sew it round. So this is what I have after stitching the front side. Do you see that the join is at the front, and then do you see that the joining side of the band is at the front crunch like that? So it's looking very neat. So I've gone ahead to arrange it out. So I'm going to cut out my elastic piece and join the ends. Then I'm going to place the elastic one side like this inside of the band and stitch it down with about 0.75 inches. This is because we want our opening for the elastic to pass through to be a lot bigger than that of the elastic, so that we don't end up stitching on the elastic. So if you want, you can also make use of 1 inches. So my elastic piece, I'm just using my waist measurement. Remove about 3 inches from your waist measurement. Please ensure that when you are passing the elastic, putting the elastic inside of it, ensure that you don't stitch on the elastic so that you can have free movement. So just look at what I'm doing carefully and you're going to get it right. So at this point where we can't pass the elastic again, I'm going to pass the fabric over from the elastic. So just look at what I'm doing so that you can get a free movement. So do you see what I'm talking about? So while sewing, also ensure that you drag the elastic a little bit to ensure that you didn't sew on top of the elastic, and ensure that you always push the elastic inside. This is actually very tricky, so just take your time to do it. So after doing that, for the second layer, I'm going to add my rope. So I need to put my eyelet so that the rope can pass through it. So I'm going to just get that point where I joined at the crunch side. I'm going to mark 1 inch from the line at both sides. So I've gone ahead to do that with my chalk, and I'm also going ahead to use a hot needle or scissors to puncture a hole like that to pass through my eyelet. So ensure that your hole is not too big, and I only did it at one side like this, so don't do it at both sides. So do you see what I'm doing? I've gone ahead to then add my eyelet to it, and I've also gone ahead to fix my rope. The length of my rope was about 60 inches, so I'm just going to pass it through the eyelet like that, pass one end through the eyelet and the other end too. So ensure that while passing the other end, you're making it look like you're passing it through a circle. So this is what I'm doing, and then I'm going to pass it through. Then after doing that, I'm just going to sew it the same way I sew down the elastic to it. I'm going to also sew it the same way to ensure that you don't sew on the rope. Push it inside very well, then you can start stitching. So after doing that, we're then going to do the last layer. We're going to pass our elastic through it. I've gone ahead to do the same thing I did at the top side too. I cut out my elastic, the same measurement with the top. I joined the sides so it can be a circle. Then I'm going to then fix it, place this one inside, then I'm going to fix it in. So that's all for that. Then I'm going to go ahead to cut out the top. So this is actually a very easy process. I'm just going to fold my material into 4 equal parts like that at once. I'll be cutting the front and the back at once. So I'm going to measure out my hip measurement divided by 4, and I'm going to add about 5 inches to it. So for the length of this top, I'm just going to remove about 6 inches from it like that, and I'm going to place it from the starting line, and I'm going to get my half up measurement. In my own case, my half up measurement is about 19 inches. I'm going to be adding about 3 inches for sewing allowance and for shrinkage. So I'll use 1 inch to fold at the front and at the back, then I'm going to use the remaining 1 inch for shrinkage. By the time we smoke this, it's going to shrink a little bit, so we don't want that to shorten our fabric. So after folding the both ends, the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out ½ inch from that point like that. So I'm just going to do this down. I'm going to be doing this at the right side of the fabric actually. So we're going to be drawing out a line like that. So we're going to use this as a guide in order for us to stitch down with the smoky thread so that it will be neat. So I'm just going to do this same thing at all the sides of the fabric. Remember that we're sewing the front and the side together. After doing that, we're going to get our smoky thread. This is what it looks like. So if you go to any shop that sells materials, just ask them for your smoky thread. So I'm going to open it up like that, and I'm going to get my reeler. Do you see what I'm doing? And I'm going to reel it down. So I'm not going to use the machine to reel this down. I'm just going to be using my hand. So just take note of what I'm doing. I'm going to roll it like that. Please do not stretch it out. Don't stretch it out. Just keep rolling it carefully. If you stretch it out, you won't get the result you want. So for this, you'll be needing about 4 reelers of this elastic thread, or 5 depending on how you use it. So I just went ahead to fix 2 first of all. So after that, I went over to my sewing machine. So I'm going to remove my bobbin like that, and I'm going to remove the regular thread that is there and place my elastic smoky thread. Just look at what I'm doing. I'm going to pass it through the holes like that and ensure that it is coming out. Then I'm going to fix it in. So for the top thread, the one passing through the needle, I'm using my regular black thread. So I'm just going to bring it out like that, and I'm going to start sewing, following the lines carefully. So do you see what I'm doing? Just follow the lines and it's going to be very easy. While sewing, please ensure that you use your hand to drag it a little. Don't drag it too much, just little, just to aid movement. So while we're done, instead of cutting the thread, I'm just going to turn it over like this. So this is what we're going to do throughout. We're going to turn it over and start stitching again. Do you see that the more we follow the line, the more the fabric begins to shrink? So do you see? So as it's shrinking, just use your hand to open it up. Use your hand to open it up so that it will not have bulges. So do you see what I'm talking about? This is what we have after stitching it down. I'm just going to turn it at the right side facing each other, and I'm going to stitch down the ends with 1 inch like that. My scrunchie sleeve, I took 5 inches on a fold like this, and I went ahead to cut it out. So I'm going to be using just 5 inches for this scrunchie sleeve. Then for the length, I joined material together, which gave me 60 inches in total. So after that, I went ahead to join it at the wrong side. I just joined it by 0.5 inches like that. That's half of an inch. I did a just straight stitch. Then after that, I went ahead to turn it over. After turning it over, this is what I have. So I went ahead to arrange it out and stitch at the middle. Do you see what I'm doing? I just arranged it out, flattened it, made the stitches to be at the middle. After turning it over, then I stitched at one part of the middle. Do you see? Then at the other side too, I did the same thing too. So I'm just using this as a guide to make a piping for my elastic. So for the elastic, I went ahead to take that 6 inches times 2. The 6 inches we removed from the chest point times 2, that's 12 inches plus extra 2 inches for ease. Do you understand? So I'm taking 14 inches like that for the elastic. So please ensure that you don't straighten your elastic, just cut it out. Don't stretch it, just make sure that it is not, so that you don't get the wrong measurement. So I'm going to cut it off and then pass this elastic through the narrow opening that we already created with the stitches. Do you understand? So after passing it through, I'm going to take it over to my mannequin and I'm going to position it 2 inches away from the armhole. And so this is what we have at the end. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't, so you can get notified whenever I draw videos like this.